Jai. So reading from the Nectar of Devotion. Or should I read from the Nectar of Passion? The Nectar of Rajagun. 2. Double respect. Krishna consciousness is all auspicious. Srila Rupa Goswami has given a definition of auspiciousness. He says that actual auspiciousness means welfare activities for all the people of all the world. At the present moment, groups of people are engaged in welfare activities in terms of society, community, or nation. There is an even attempt in the form of the United Nations for world help activity, but due to the shortcomings of limited national activities, such a general mass welfare program for the whole world is not practically possible. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by this movement and everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda program for the Krishna consciousness movement to devotional service all over the world is the highest humanitarian welfare activity. I just heard yesterday, actually, Srila Prabhupada was talking about being like, part of the national, they have like a national program to help everybody in the nation. And he says, what about the national dog? Nobody wants to help the dog or the other animals in the nation. We're all part of the nation. But welfare activities means we're trying to help the dog and we're trying to help the cow and the little cat up the tree. That's what real welfare activity is, trying to help everyone, not just the human species, not just the white members of the human species or the male members, but welfare activity is to help everybody. Jai. Srila Goswami Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So if you have a pen and paper or a phone handy, and if you come across a question during the course of the class, you can jot it down. Because generally what happens is when the class breaks up for questions, everyone's forgotten their question. And generally, the process of assimilating information is that as you're listening to it, you're automatically coming up with questions. Why is he saying that? What does he mean by this? And then we go on to the next one. And then by the time you get to the end, you can't remember what all the questions were, which means they remain unexplained. So this is text 3 of chapter 6 entitled Prahlad Instructs His Demoniac Schoolmates, and it's canto 7 of the Srimad Bhagvatam, which altogether is 12 cantos or 60 volumes of books. Sukham Endriyakam Decha Sukham Endriyakam Decha Deha Yogina Dehanam Deha Yogena Dehana Sabatra Labhyate Devad Savatra Labhyate Devad Yata Dukam Ayatnata Yata Dukam Ayatnata Sukham Endriyakam Decha Deha Yogena Dehana Savatra Labhyate Devad Yata Dukam Ayatnata Sukham Endriyakam Decha Deha Yogena Dehana Savatra Labhyate Devad Yata Dukam Ayatnata Sukhamandriyakam decha Deha yogena dehana Sarvatra labhyate devad Yata dukam ayatnata Deha Deha yogena dehanam Sarvatra labhyate devad Yata dukam ayatmata Sukhamandriyakam decha Deha yogena dehanam Sarvatra labhyate devad Yata dukam ayatnata. Okay. Sukham, happiness. Endriyakam, with reference to the material senses. Decha, oh, my dear friends born in demoniac families. Deha yogena, because of possessing a particular type of material body. Dehanam, of all embodied living entities. Sarvatra, everywhere in any form of life. Labhyate is obtainable. Devat, by a superior arrangement. Yata, just as. Dukam, unhappiness. Ayatnata, without endeavor. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj continued, my dear friends born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived by reference to sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Responsively, please. Prahlad Maharaj continued, my dear friends born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. So Prahlad Maharaj is a 5-year-old boy. This is a few million years ago. He's Maharaj because he's the king's son, and the king is a demon, just to bring everybody up to speed. Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the material world, in any form of life, there is some so-called happiness and so-called distress. No one invites distress in order to suffer, but still it comes. Similarly, even if we do not endeavor to obtain the advantages of material happiness, we shall obtain them automatically. This happiness and distress are obtainable in any form of life without endeavor. Yet there is no need to waste time and energy fighting against distress or working very hard for happiness. Our only business in the human form of life should be to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become qualified to return home, back to Godhead. Material happiness and distress come as soon as we accept a material body, regardless of what form. We cannot avoid such happiness and distress under any circumstances. The best use of human life, therefore, lies in reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayambhupakadamayam Vedanta Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So why does Srila Prabhupada say so-called happiness and so-called distress? Why so-called? Kartikeya.
Because it's temporary, and the so-called happiness and distress is faced by not our body, not our soul.
Yeah. So to elaborate on that, a person may be in a very materially nice situation, somebody else may not. They may be in a very difficult situation, but that doesn't determine their level of consciousness or their level of happiness. Their happiness is determined by their consciousness. And although you may not be able to change your circumstances, you can change your consciousness. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, do you remember that one? It's not what people do to you that hurts you, it's how you react to what people do to you that hurts you. So it's the same with the environment. It's not so much the environment that makes you happy or unhappy, it's how you react to the environment that makes you happy or unhappy. And the so-called happiness and the so-called distress is just you reacting to something which is temporary and illusory, although it can seem very real. So isn't that interesting that most people don't even know what reality is? They did a film, Matrix, and it was showing that this isn't reality. Reality was something else. They had a different identity, and they were being projected into this matrix, and they were believing that everything around them was real and solid, and they were eating things, and it tasted like it was there, and it was actually, they were experiencing it, but they were removed somewhere else, and this was just being projected on them. So material world is a little bit like that also. We're identifying with what's going on around us. I was out yesterday, I was just looking, people were walking around in the park, walking their dogs and things, and one guy was trying to do some funny thing with the skateboard. And he was a bit fat, and he was getting on a bit. He didn't really looked a bit out of place. And he had a little girl with him. And but he was just trying to get on with it and do it. And at the same time is just ticking away. And everyone's walking around in the park like they're going to live forever. No one's really addressing the fact that soon our life will be finished and we'll have to move on because everything here is temporary. I was thinking, really what they're trying to do, they're trying to be like they would be in the spiritual world, because in the spiritual world you can be carefree, you don't have to worry about time, you can play with your skateboard all day, and it's not a problem because time never runs out. Everything there is eternal. But if you're trying to do it in the material world, then you're just kind of pretending everything's okay in a small window of time, and life is ebbing away, and then eventually life is finished, and then you reflect back on what you did to prepare for it, and it was all a waste of time. Is that too heavy? Does that sound a bit too heavy? Is that depressing? So we're trying to get free from illusion. We're trying to get free from this illusion that the material world is our home, and that if we get a nice place, we can settle down there, get a nice settee, and a nice big TV, and a nice big fire, and a cottage with roses around the door as you go in, and you can just sit back and, oh, now everything's okay. But how long is it okay for? The very body that you're okaying it in is decomposing before your very eyes. All the dust, you know, the dust that we sweep up when we're cleaning all the time. If you look at it under a microscope, it's pieces of dead skin that have flaked off your body. So as we're sitting here right now, bits of skin are flaking off us. We're in a slow process of decomposition. And then people are like getting creams and rubbing it in to try and fight against the aging process. The aging process is there to remind us that we don't belong here. Similarly, if we do not endeavor to obtain the advantages, no one invites distress in order to suffer, but still it comes. Similarly, if we do not endeavor to obtain the advantages of material happiness, we shall obtain them automatically. So what's sad about that is you may, nothing, whatever comes your way, your happiness will come one day. You'll get up and you just feel really happy. One lady, she won the lottery in Leek, in a town called Leek. And I was in a shop asking the person in the shop, it was a shoe shop, if they'd like to give a donation to help us with our charitable work. And she popped her head over my shoulder and she said, "Are you doing charity work?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, it's your lucky day because I've won £2 million and there's no way I can spend it all because I'm 65. So every day I give a charity £500. So today's your lucky day." So she wrote a check out for me. But she said what was sad about it was by the time she'd got the 2 million, now she was getting happiness, but now she was too old to really enjoy it, you know. So now all she could do was really just give it away. So this happiness and distress obtainable in any form of life without endeavor. So Rishabdev says the same thing, doesn't he? He says to his sons, don't endeavor for sense gratification, like the hogs and dogs are getting all the sense gratification. The dog and the hog have their sex life every day and they eat all kinds of abominable things, but they're very happy. A human form of life is meant for more than what the hogs and dogs are getting with ease. In fact, the hogs and dogs, if the goal of life is sense gratification, the hogs and dogs are beating us at doing it. Because hogs and dogs don't pay council tax, they don't go into antidepressants, and they don't try and commit suicide. All the weird and wonderful scenarios that we get caught up in the human form of life. If you're a hog or you're a dog, life's quite simple. Just try and eat every day and mate every day and find somewhere to sleep. And everything's fine. Everything's hunky-dory, hoggy-dory. This happiness and distress are obtainable in any form. Thus there is no need to waste time and energy fighting against distress or working very hard for happiness. So that kind of pulls the plug out of material civilization, Western civilization. They're coming up with that. It's funny, isn't it? Now we've got more gizmos than ever before, which were supposedly to save time. And yet now we've got less time than ever. You know, if we were to go back 100 years, people would be going to work in a horse and cart, and they'd be having a chat and getting on with their job, and it'd be quite relaxed. And now we've become so fast. It's funny though, even though the cars now are so fast, it still takes half an hour for most people to get to work, half an hour to an hour. And if you go back 100 years, horse and cart, most people worked about 10 miles away, took about an hour to get to work. And before the horse and cart, people walked, and most of them got to work in about an hour because their job was about 3 or 4 miles away. So we've got the car, but it still takes an hour to get to work. So we don't really win. It's like the rat going in the little wheel. So the rat could run faster, really, really fast, but it doesn't actually get anywhere. It's just the wheel goes faster. Our only business in the human form of life should be to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become qualified to return home back to Godhead. So revive suggests something that was already there. You know, if your arm goes dead and you want to revive your dead arm, it's not that as you revive your arm, you know, if your arm's gone dead, you go, wow, I've got an arm. I didn't realize I had an arm. That's fantastic, you know. So when you revive your relationship, right now we're desensitized to our relationship with God, and then suddenly we can revive it, and then we can function nicely. God can use us again as a hand. Material happiness and distress come as soon as we accept a material body, regardless of what form. So the real problem isn't happiness or distress. The real problem is material body. So instead of trying to find our happiness in a material body, we should try and find our happiness in the soul. By acts of devotion, by chanting, by remembering and meditating. It's funny actually, everything culminates really in memory. Whatever happens, say you have a great life and you smoke 15 cigars a day and you have a massive yacht and 20 girlfriends or 20 boyfriends, and you've got millions of pounds and everybody thinks you're cool, and then suddenly you're 17, you're just about to die. The only thing you've got are the memories, whatever you can remember. And suddenly for us, we're always remembering Krishna. And that's how we get our happiness, by remembering Krishna. So it's the memory which ensures the happiness, not the sensual activity. The activity itself, the stimulation of the senses, lasts for a fleeting moment, and then we retain the memory, and then that's what we carry with us, So if you decide, I'm going to remember Krishna, beautiful Krishna, the cowherd boy, yellow silken garments with a peacock feather, plays a flute, engages in living pastimes with his devotees, I'm just going to keep thinking of him, remembering him. That's where the real happiness is. We cannot avoid such happiness and distress under any circumstances. The best use of human life, therefore, lies in reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. So Prabhupada is saying also that we can return home, back to Godhead. So that's actually what we're all looking for. We're looking for our home. We're all homeless. We should all be selling the big issue. Because we're homeless. We don't know who our real father and mother are. We're adopted by the material energy. We have a particular set of parents in this lifetime. We had another set of parents in another lifetime, another set of parents in another lifetime. They're just our parents in this lifetime, occupying that role for us. And we're playing out here a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world. Everything here is just a perverted reflection. Any questions or comments?
Earlier you were mentioning like the national dog, or what do we do for dogs, but isn't it, Prabhu, there are so many charities like rescue dogs, and in UK also there are so many people who look after dogs, and charities looking after dogs.
You can get your dog's astrological chart done as well in America. Astrological chart. Your dog will, in 3 years from now, your dog will get a massive bone from the butchers or something. Whatever significant thing can happen when you're a dog, So and we have different people that are petitioning to save cows, different people that are trying to save cats, and cats is a big one as well. Cats and dogs. No one's so much bothered about pigs and cows, which is a contradiction in itself. Why are you so worried about? I mean, what does a dog produce really, apart from stool? What does the dog really do? Well, kind of runs around and wags its tail. The cow produces, even the stool of the cow is useful. The urine of the cow, if you drink it, it gets you free from infection. The milk, so much, And then when the cow dies of old age, you can use the hide for making drums and so many. It's so useful, So why is it that we're so concerned with looking after animals? Some people have pet spiders, pet snakes, and yet at the same time, we're neglecting and abusing the cow. Why is that? Why it's so unfair? It's like saying, well, we like helping humans, but only ones that are really fat. We like helping fat humans, but not thin ones. Thin ones, we shoot them and slaughter them, and we hate thin humans. But it's still a human. So similarly, the cow is still an animal. And what Prabhupada was meaning by, why aren't we looking after the dog? There's no real arrangements made. If there's it's supposed to be, if there's a war, that the women and children and the old people are protected. And that would include also the animals, The warriors would just go out to a bit of wasteland, and the warriors from the other nation would go out and they would fight. Never one would take the kingdom, And now no one's protected. The dogs aren't considered of any value in terms of, to some degree they are, I suppose. But it's not considered that, the human form of life is considered the most important, and everything else is secondary. They don't see it from a spiritual point of view. From the absolute point of view, then all forms of life should be respected and protected. The rivers, the skies, the trees, the flowers, plants, everything is there nicely, and we shouldn't disturb that arrangement.
The point. So on these cows, the stool is very valuable, say, or useful. But research has not shown that it produces, I don't know some technicalities, but it produces more gas or some things which is not good for the environment.
Yeah, well, that's debatable, isn't it? That's debatable. I mean, they're coming up with all kinds of speculations now.
Well, even if it's true, I think it needs seeing what the cow is fed. If you feed the cow with something which is artificial, something which is already not good for the cow to take in, and then you expect the cow to give proper dung, say, which is good for the environment, it won't come out, I suppose.
Yes, there was a little video on Instagram, and they're asking all these top specialists, do you know how much of the atmosphere is CO2? And they didn't even know, and they're doing all these things and making all these taxes. They said it's 0.02%. So the effect it would have, some CO2 gas coming from cows would be negligible. On the other hand, if you look in Dubai, what they do with all the old tires, they have like massive, it's like acres and acres and acres of tires, and they burn them, and all that goes up into the atmosphere. Now that is going to have a very bad effect on the CO2 and everything else. But they're coming out with all these nonsense schemes, and the climate change, the global warming, and just another way to tax people, try and get people panic stricken. Oh, we need to. Every 10 years, there's something that we're going to be safe from. It was the ozone layer at one point. Now no one's bothered with the ozone layer. Then it was the millennial. When we reach the year 2000, all the computers won't work and the internet won't work or something. So they have all these, they drum up all these panics, and it's just to keep people in a fearful condition all the time. Because when people are afraid, then they feel they need the protection of their governments to help them and save them. Like with this whole COVID thing. Anyway, we don't want to get into that too much, but the general observation is that people that are leading us right now are not in knowledge of what the real welfare activities should be. And they don't have they're not laying down the proper legislation to protect the animals from the abuse of humans.
Just some comments with your permission, please. So on this wars and all, like I don't think so the world has ever seen a war as big as Mahabharata.
Yeah, there was actually more people killed when he had dynasty. There was 700 million killed.
So the world has never seen a war as big as the war, like say Mahabharata or this Yadu dynasty war, meaning the Vedic war, same.
Yeah.
And also the world has never seen such an organized, well-organized war. Like this Russia-Ukraine war, I believe it is still going on. And no one knows, many people don't know why are they fighting for. What is the real thing people are fighting for, and what is the solution out of it? And many countries they've been in war for decades. Mahabharata war didn't go for even months and all, and none of the children and women and
the people don't know why the war is going on, but behind the war, the ones that were initiating the war, they know why the war is going on, but we don't know.
Mahabharata war, people knew why this. Just touching upon, like the king, the citizens, they were well informed that why this war is going on, what is happening. But I suppose even Russians and Ukrainian citizens, they don't know why that actually the two countries are fighting for what's what true.
Yeah, if you look at the Varnashram system, the Shudras didn't vote. The Brahmins voted, not the Shudras. Prabhupada called it democracy.
A question, Prabhu. So, in this purport overall so-called happiness, so-called distress, and not making extra endeavor and all, does it mean that everything in life is already predestined?
Well, the river is predestined in its course, but how you navigate down the river is entirely up to you. You could develop navigational skills, which would make it much easier to pass over the rocks and and deal with the rapids, and eventually get ready for the waterfall at the end, the waterfall of death. Everyone's river, everyone's karma will lead to death, whatever it is. And you can train yourself to become very good, so that you can navigate down that river. When you're 30, you will lose your right arm. So there's a turn there in the river. So that will happen. But you may be ready for that you can deal with that. Like there was one man, he's not got any legs, but he's become really famous. He's like a motivational speaker. I don't think he's got any arms either, actually. He's only got little, but he's done so much. He's achieved so much. He just refuses to be impaired by the limitations of his karma. So that then comes down to your consciousness, and that's the point the Prabhupada's making here, that there may be so many things going on externally, and you may say, well, because I'm like this, I have a really good reason for being unhappy. But you can turn it around and say, well, because of this, I can be really happy because I get so much recognition now for doing things, and I've become famous because of it, So your consciousness, your attitude, your intention is more significant than the karma that's going on around you. That is predetermined. You have a particular body, but you don't have to identify with the body as yourself, and therefore not identify with the limitations of the body as yourself. There's a book called about positive thinking, and it says attitude is more important than facts.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just wanted to ask something, that when we go to India, we see that, cows are literally worshipped.
Yeah.
Whoever owns the cow, we see that, they actually literally praise to the cow, do their aarti and everything.
Well, in one sense they are, and in another sense it's the biggest exporter of...
Yeah. So they're the second biggest exporter of the beef. Whenever, they're praying to the cow one day, next day that cow, produces a bull and they sell the bull away.
Yeah.
And so how can one see that and try to understand that, one sense they're praying to the cow, but at the sense they're torturing the cow at the
You
same time.
understand that we're in the age of Kali, and when Kali was found by Pariksha, he was torturing the bull, and he was told you can only reside in places where there is gold, because at that time, Maharaj Parikshit's kingdom, there was no meat eating, there was no intoxication, there was no illicit sex, there was no gambling, so there was nowhere for Kali to go. So he said you can reside wherever there is gold. So basically, wherever there's a lot of money in Kali Yuga, then you'll see illicit sex, intoxication, eating meat, and gambling. Kali will come. That's how Kali comes. You want to invoke the presence of Kali, and you just get a big mound of gold, and all the four activities will take place very quickly. And India, the problem with India is you see people in the West are just sinful, but in India they're committing aparad. They're offending the holy Dham, they're offending the deity. That's more problematic. Then then their intelligence becomes covered, and then they just see some profit in the deity. We'll use the deity to make some money. We'll use the bull to make some money. Everything just becomes profit orientated. It loses the sensitivity of spiritual consideration.
Prabhu, just since cow is like worshipable for us, like in Krishna consciousness, so how can we, try to improve this situation?
The main way we can improve the situation is by the distribution of literature. When I first came to Scotland in I first came in 82 and then I came back in 87. Glasgow was the stab capital of Europe. Yeah, if you wanted to get stabbed, then you go on holiday in Glasgow. And now, after distributing, 2 million pieces of literature, a lot of which went out in Glasgow, it was the vegan capital of Europe. I think it's Berlin now. So you see just by sheer volume of spiritual literature, how the consciousness can change. Even if people don't read the books, they just keep the books on the shelf. Still, the energy will go through and it will purify the atmosphere. And then once people start to see that animals should be respected and protected the same as everybody else, then we can start to see that then humans also need to be respected and protected. Because if you're abusing the animal, it's only a question of time because you start thinking, well, they're animals as well, We can just have a war and kill them all. What's the problem, you know? Then we'll make a load of money and everything will be fine, you know? So once the animal is no longer considered really alive, and then people start thinking, well, they're no different than animals, really. So if we can do that to an animal, then maybe we can do it to humans as well. So then everything goes down, everything degrades.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Any questions from our guests? So the purport is challenging material civilization, because material civilization is based upon the presumption that you are the body. And so if you are the body, then keeping the body full of nice food and taking it to get stimulated by sensual pleasures, then that would be happiness. And then eventually the body would break down and die, and that would be the end of you. You'd be finished. Nothing else after that.
It's just about the gold thing. So, you know, seeing in our new TOVP, everything's gold plated, right? There's so much gold leaf everywhere. How are we going to expect that Kali's not going to creep in our own movement? You know, we've got so much gold.
It's called Trangaranjani. Vishnu Chagavati explains 6 forms of unsteady devotional service. And one of them is Tarangaranjani. Tarangaranjani means that when you do your devotional service, you become pious, you get some sukriti, so then you get good health, good wife, good situation, good job, good facility, good food. And it's like, oh, great, I'm getting some nice facilities now, yeah? And then you start to enjoy them. And if you start to enjoy them, then that will impact on your level of devotional service. So when you're dealing with the material energy and there's opulence involved, then you have to be careful. You have to be very careful. And I've seen it personally with music is a very intoxicating thing. Sometimes devotees will get into music and he'll want to, you know, he make a little bit of fame as well, and then he becomes distracted from his devotional service. It's a very intoxicating thing, music, all the recognition. And money as well. People can be interested in Krishna consciousness and suddenly they get a windfall. And then they decide, oh, okay, I'm going to pursue these material desires that I couldn't fulfill before. So therefore I take it into spiritual life. But now I can. So forget spiritual life. I'll get back into material life. So it's, one of the dangers of performing devotional service is that you get material facilities. And you can become distracted and enamored by those material facilities and then give up the devotional path, you know. So we have to be on our guard against that.
Is karma material or spiritual, Prabhu?
Karma. Karma is a reaction for an action. And there is no reaction if the action is spiritual. Inaction. There's inaction in action, and there's action in inaction. So if you do something with the spirit for a spiritual purpose, then it's no longer affected by karma. That's why Krishna said to Arjuna, just go ahead and fight. If you don't fight, you don't get karma. If you do fight, you won't get karma. Karma is it's compared to being in a web, and the more you wriggle, the more you get bound up in the web. So karma is like that. You have your karma, and then you start fighting against your karma. Why did you do that to me? And I'm going to get more than him, you know. And then all that happens is you become more entangled. So if you want to disentangle yourself from karma, you have to become equipped with the sword of knowledge and cut through the labyrinth. The sword of knowledge and detachment. Knowledge and detachment go hand in hand. As you become more knowledgeable, you become more detached from the material energy. And with that, you can cut yourself free. Yes, Dhananda. Hare Krishna.
So we've recently been hearing how much the false ego is a barrier to spiritual progress. Are there any surefire signs that you're under the influence of the false ego?
Well, if you're under the influence of the false ego, what's the real ego? Lord Chaitanya is saying you should chant in a humble state of mind, be more tolerant and free, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others, and not expect any respect from anybody else. That's real ego. So if you're like that, then you're fine. And if you're not like that, who do you think you are? Who are you looking at? How dare you? Do you know who I am? That's false ego. Based upon your body and your subtle mental abilities, and you're expecting a certain level of respect and recognition. So that's false ego. And then real ego is that I'm a tiny, insignificant speck of consciousness inside this body, and my eternal occupation is to serve Krishna Jiva Rupa Hai. That is my constitutional position. That's real ego. And then there's false ego. And the funny thing about false ego is it's not even real in terms of the body. Like this model was saying, what was the name? Alison Simpson or something like that. And she was saying, even I don't look like Alison Simpson, because they do all these photo shoots, and you see Alison Simpson, you think, wow, she's so gorgeous, you know. And it's not even Alison Simpson. She doesn't look like she's got spots, and she's got like wrinkles and sagging skin, same as everybody else. But in the photo shoot, they take all the blemishes out. So that's like already she's not the body, and then on top of that, we have our conception of what we think our body looks like. So our false ego is so false. It's not even what we actually look like. It's what we think we look like. How we think we look, you know. And that's why sometimes we don't like a photograph. Oh no, that's not me. Oh no, don't put that photograph in. My nose looks massive. Take a different shot. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, okay. I look okay there. Do that one. So people become very upset and depressed when false ego is broken, and then they see the other, and they don't realize that this other thing that they say is also false ego. When they see themselves as fat and spotty and not attractive to the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever it is, and then they become crestfallen. Oh. But that's also the false ego. When you think you're useless and you're rubbish and you're no good at this and you're a failure, that's false ego. Just the same as when you think I'm really cool and I'm the best at this and I should be the next prime minister. That's false ego, but it's all false ego. Because real ego is paramada. You're perfect and you're complete. You're completely perfect. You, in your essential spiritual quality, are beautiful and perfect and complete. And that's our real ego. That's who we really are, you know. So it's funny, isn't it? Although we're humble and we feel tolerant and we feel lower than everybody else, at the same time we know that we're perfect and we're beautiful and we're complete. You think, oh, you think you're perfect. You've got a massive false ego. That's just real ego. I know I'm perfect, I'm part and parcel of God, and everything that comes from God is perfect. So everyone's perfect. Nobody can be you better than you can. You can perfectly be you. Nobody else can be you. Nobody else can please God in the way that you can. That's why you were created. Create that variety, that spectrum of flavor, so that we can relish enjoy all the different interactions with the living entities. So the challenge is, can you, in this human form of life, penetrate through the layers of false ego that identify the body, where you're born, how you look, and even into your mental false ego of how you think you are and who you think you are, and really, really get down deep, dig down deep into who you actually are, the real you. Should join the Hare Krishna movement and do book distribution for 20 years. Oh, well, that's one way anyway. So you have to become aware, more aware, through meditation and mantra meditation is an excellent way of doing it, because mantra is a sound which is spiritual. So if you keep hearing spiritual sound vibration, it dissolves the false ego. The false ego is in there, like a covering. And the sound vibration, as you're hearing the sound vibration, it's breaking through, penetrating through those membranes of false ego.
So, not on mantra meditation, but meditation in general, is it not like, okay, by meditation, do you mean in my home or somewhere, isolation, I sit down, quiet, and think nothing, and go in peace within myself and do some contemplation and see some pros and cons? That is meditation, right? And be more kindful, more thoughtful.
It is meditation, but the only problem is the timing is out. Your timing is out. You're about, is it 6 million years out? Because we have different ages. The age we're in now is called Kali, which is the winter age, and the age before was Dwapara. So Kali lasts for 432,000 years. Dwapara lasts for 800, and it's too much. And then Treta is 3 as much, and then Satya Yuga is like, it's like in 4 parts, you know, so you have 25%, 50%. So Satya Yuga, they were so powerful, they could sit there and they could just immediately meditate. They could do real meditation silently. They could just, they may have done mantra as well, but they could do that. In the age that we're in now, Kali Yuga, because people are so disturbed, it's very hard for them to focus their mind for any length of time, you know. And because of all the scrolling that's going on now, the attention span is shortening. It used to be the average attention span of a school kid was 15 minutes, because after that the advertisements would come on when they were watching the TV, so they would just use the 15 minutes and then go and do something, and then 15 minutes. And so they got used to this 15, 20-minute concentration span. Before TV, it was longer. People could sit there and look at a book for an hour, you know. So as we go on, I think people's attention span is becoming so fleeting that they can't even look at if the video is any longer than about 30 seconds, they're already done to something else. You know, so everything's going to be jam-packed in real fast. And the person comes on and he's like speaking really fast. Hey, so that the person doesn't lose interest, you know. So because it is like that, it is very difficult to just sit there and do silent meditation. The mind is being bombarded. So therefore, sound, if you jump in front of somebody and say, apple, 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 you're forced to think of an apple. So if you, Krishna, Krishna, it's a very cutting sound vibration as well. Krishna cuts through the ears, Krishna. It's very precise, Krishna, 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 Krishna. And by hearing that sound vibration, it penetrates through the ignorance, through the false ego. And it takes a little while. You have to persevere with mantra meditation. It doesn't happen immediately, because it takes some time for the sound vibration to penetrate through. And then we're actually hearing it, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, wow, I'm really connecting with that, you know. You have to try it. You have to try it for yourself and see. You can hear people talking about it, but you have to go and get that bead back, put those beads in your hand and say the mantra and just hear it, nothing else, and see if it works. And guaranteed, if you do it properly, it will work. That's the big F. Do you do it properly? Or are you chanting very distracted way? If you're distracted, then you don't align, you don't connect, you know. It's like if you shoot the gun down this tube, it'll hit the bullseye. But the problem is we're shooting everywhere else, you know. We have to just align it up. If we can align it up and just Krishna, then it goes right through. Ping. And we experience something. But it has to focus. We're focused when we do it. If we're not focused, then we're not giving it a proper try, you know. At least once we can try it. Okay, in my entire life, can I just for 5 minutes sit there in Krishna and hear the sound vibration? Just let it go right in. When you actually hear something, really hear something, it goes in and you never forget it. If you look back over your life on the times when people said something where you really heard it, you've never forgotten that. Because when you really hear something, it touches the soul. More than any other sense, you can see something, you can smell something, you can taste something, but when you hear something, it can go right to the soul. So in this age, it's recommended to hear mantra, hear holy sound vibration. ISKCON Guru in the key, Srila Prabhupada key, Gaura Premanandi Haribol. All of ki jai.